Thank you. Good morning, Sunday morning. So this morning's Dharma topic is not a title so much as it is something I do every now and then. I'm guessing somewhere around number 35, mountains and rivers. And this means you ask questions and the whole situation will be mountains and rivers. You'll ask questions, I'll respond best I can, and then you'll ask another question and I'll respond to that. So should work out fine. Has in the past. Some of the best, I guess you call them talks, have been mountains and rivers. There's a few in the past that were extremely good because of the interaction between people. It's such an important part of the Sangha, the three jewels. So please, sir.
Using fine. Does less is better or don't do anything unless you have to mean waiting for something to look complete before taking action?
So I would leave off the word complete, which is just more garbage from the point of view of the spiritual path. From the point of view of the relative, you might need to do very much relative. You might need to pound nails at this time and saw wood at this time. That's a very relative situation. But if it's the spiritual path, only you, or only you, or only you, or only you, or only you will know when this is something that needs to be. You need to hold your horses on that one because you can see that you are trying to get your way. So it's about awareness. It's always, my friends, it's always about awareness. I'm starting to get cranked up here, so I apologize ahead of time if I happen to yell. I know I did yesterday, but no, was it? Were you sitting right there when I yelled? Did that? But you have those earplugs in, so you have to be bothered by it. And dark glasses, which helps see the terrible, horrible, monstrous expressions that are coming out. That's a very good question. Could you go further into that? Let's do that. That's important. It's so difficult. Pardon me for interrupting, but it's so difficult not only to understand that, but to communicate that to someone that doesn't look like just further obfuscation. So it's very important, please.
It looks to me like I have to take action to understand something more deeply.
I've noticed that in talking to you for many, many years. Everyone is so different in this area. There's no, when they say don't set up standards, that's what's being referred to there. Each person's confusion and enlightenment and confusion needs to be met by, if there's a teacher available, needs to be met by that teacher as they are. No correction going into saying, well, you shouldn't, or you need to do this, you need to do that. This has taken me many, many years to understand that because my own karma, my own causes and conditions are absolutely a mess. And so I've been trying to fix myself since I was born. And with the help of my stepfather, who told me how stupid I was and letting me know how broken I was. Am I complaining about it? Do I need a therapist? No, I don't need a therapist. But you may need one. Or you may need to just sit down and look at the damn wall and be genuine. What did Trungpa Rinpoche mean when he said be genuine? It's a rhetorical question, therefore you have to answer. Isn't that the way it goes? That's not funny anymore. I was funny 3 years ago. I'll stop. So it's so hard to continue to use the concepts to talk about something that is being, that over here, I'm looking at it. So I have to see it, and then I have to bring that into a conceptual structure called communication and let you know what it is. And with the idea that you take that and you're, without translating and translating it into something else, you actually get what is being pointed at, because what is being pointed at has no legs, has no wings, has no body, has no form, completely formless. It's called consciousness only. And I'm trying to introduce you to that So you won't try to perfect yourself into some stupid idea or standard of perfection or enlightenment or any other damn thing. So the way you function, going back to that, is by comparing. Isn't that true? Just go ahead, disagree with me.
I'm not sure I fully understand what you're saying.
So you'll ask me, Sokuzan, should I do this or this? And I'll say, you need to do this. And until I tell you what to do, it's only then that you actually begin to see what you should do, or what you have to do, or what you can't help but do. At least my words, not yours, but it's showed up that way for quite a long time. Can you comment on that? Maybe I'm saying it. I've noticed that you don't necessarily, not always, but you won't necessarily do what you've asked me a very definite question. I'm hesitant to tell anybody what to do. But if you push on me, no, you've got to tell me, I need some feedback. You need to, what should I do? What should I do? And I said, well, the way it looks, you should do that. And then I've had you say, well, I can't do that. Or, yes, I think I got it right. It's not, I can. So let's talk about that's very interesting, that area.
Geez, it seems like the other side of it is I can hold my horses, but I get feedback at some point, like I just feel stagnant. And so,
okay, so the stagnant is an operative of the ego in language to continue to have control. It's a judgment that you're laying on that, so it stops you from seeing what it is. And so you just call it stagnant. So that gets you to continue to move in the relative area of control, the illusion of control. It's not control. There is no control. So I'm looking at everybody in here because if you think you're in control of anything, take another look and see just how much control you have. You have a little bit. You can move this from this side to this side. You can do a lot of things, but what has already occurred in the illusion of time and space, you have no say-so over. You can't just suddenly become a female. Although people, because of the confusion in that area, tried to become the other sex because they think that would solve their situation. And I'm not saying it wouldn't solve it. It might help them to go for the rest of this life without issues. But it's still about control, and it's still about covering up the fundamental situation that they missed the opportunity. Am I accusing anybody of doing it? No, absolutely not. People should do what they need to do. You don't even need to meditate. You should do what you need to do. You need to meditate. I'm all about helping you see what that is. And it is painful for you and painful for me. So it's about the polarity situation. And when you can come up to a situation where you see that you're judging something, you might have a feeling to back it up. I'm not saying you don't, but you'll also remember that I've said many, many times, don't believe your thoughts, don't believe your feelings. Don't ignore them, because if you believe them, you've stopped, you've opted for grasping at something rather than being aware of something. So it's a shutting down process that might feel genuine to you. Lots of things feel genuine to ego. It runs its whole life by feeling, well, I got to be me, kind of crap. More, you have it?
geez,
You spend the whole hour listening to what you have to ask me. Well, I might have to break in and ask you something. Go ahead.
Geez, when I hear you say that, it makes me think that then I shouldn't function in that way. But is it just about functioning that way with awareness?
Always about being aware of how you're functioning, not so much saying I shouldn't function that way. When I say don't do this or don't do that, I know you may not be able to help that. You may just, because of your situation or mine or anyone else's, you just have to do it that way. So it's about being aware of how much compulsion is happening in any given area. More. Yes, Bune.
Bowing. Can I at the same time really, really want something to happen and still relate with the situation directly?
Completely. Yes, you can really, there's nothing wrong with desire at all. Even though desire is second noble truth, I would comment on what the Buddha said, the cause of suffering, the first noble truth is desire. It's the demand. The desire is very simple, but he needed to have a way 2,500 years ago to talk about this. So he started out very simply. but it's the demand. The desire is fine. You can have a really intense desire to do this or that or the other thing and just not do it. Sometimes people will say, I think this might be in that other tradition we call theism, where even if you have an evil thought, you've already done it, which is a presumption that you can somehow control your thoughts, that's what theism is about, control, especially by old white men or any old men. So wanting to control other people. So more about that if you haven't.
Well, just more basically, how is demand different than desire?
So you've actually left the desire, the actual enjoyment and the pleasure of wanting something else. Because what that is very respectful to any situation. The whole thing is built of nerve endings and objects in the nerve endings and in the consciousness. So to be respectful to that, you should allow that to do what it is. When I say allow, even allow is extra, because that sounds like somebody's allowing. It's just receive. That's probably the best word. When you have the feeling of desire, just receive the desire. Do not fulfill it. Now, if the situation is such where, I'm going to use a kind of a silly example, if there's some cheesecake in front of you and you desire to have some cheesecake, there's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting the cheesecake and eating it, unless your blood sugar is 300. A little silly, but it's like that, unless. It's very important. That's why awareness is so important, because awareness does not miss the incredibly vast, complicated area of situations, because awareness doesn't have a fixation on a self and on another. It is not even looking at the cheesecake. It's just receiving everything. And that's something you would receive, that this wouldn't be inappropriate. It wouldn't be language, but this is not a particularly appropriate time to eat cheesecake, even though you have the desire. I gave a talk once over in Kalamazoo. I don't know who was there. It was at some kind of a retreat. I don't see anyone that I recall being there. Not that I remember that well. I know Unya was there. Unya, do you remember she there? Unya, do you remember the retreat where I gave a talk on sweet rolls or on something like that?
I remember it. I don't remember much about it.
That's good. That's good. Neither do I. So we're even. But it was something about walking by the sweet roll and just feeling the desire of wanting that, rather than doing anything. No commentary, just feel the desire. So it was an actual practice that I gave over there. Seemed to be quite entertaining to people. At least I don't know how helpful, but it's about feeling the desire. It's about the first, as Trungpa Rinpoche would say, first thought, best thought. I would say first feeling, just the first feeling. Nothing added into that whatsoever. More?
Beyond bowing, I'm trying to get to demand and desire's relationship to identity and sense of self, and that.
Paraphrase what you said and ask me again.
What I'm making of what you're saying is that demand seems to have a different relationship with our identity, our solid sense of self, and
Interesting what happens if I say paraphrase or ask you to paraphrase. It goes back in the same territory, but starts to find other kinds of obstacles to being able to complete your question. It's also awareness. Now, do you have it?
maybe beyond bowing. I want to know if desire can be fully experienced without like shoring our identity, without it being a credential to identity.
I think so. And also being successful at not indulging in your desire. That can also be observed the way if you're getting a little slight credit there every time you walk past the cheesecake or something. So again, hundreds of times, I'll say it hundreds more if I need to. It's about the awareness of what is happening. rather than controlling it. Very subtle area. And that's why no matter how horrible or distasteful or uncomfortable, anything that happens, in your mind or in the world or anywhere, if you can just receive it and look at it with as little outflow on it about what it is or description, have a willingness to not know what anything is other than just maybe the immediacy leading edge of the sometimes absolute horror of any given situation. See, receive, smell, taste, touch, hear, think, feel the horror of it or the wonderful feeling of it. Listening to a opera, if you like opera, listening to something really beautiful, you'll notice that that's what art is about, is being able to receive just the emotional quality without any commentary around it. Of course, that emotion has different levels of texture to it, going from visual art to auditory. Go ahead.
Is there any difference between feeling desire and not acting on it and acting on it with awareness?
There again, it's so situational that there would be differences there, but how they would show up or how you would describe them, I would almost have to go into that individual situation with you possibly, or you would do it on your own and see that the way that it's going to have its own kind of little story about it. That insofar as the ego, the self-centered part of the consciousness is able, it will get that story in such a shape that it will be supportive to the continued adventure of ego to get what it wants and keep away what it doesn't want. Like it becomes more and more subtle. More in that area if you have it.
It seems like some desires are more dangerous than others.
I would agree.
And if we act on those with awareness, it's
But, you know,
that demand.
There's no credential for this. I'm very aware, so therefore I get to abuse someone, or I'm very aware, so therefore I get to lift things I need in the hardware store and steal. That area there is it's really for the ego to get some kind of congratulations out of avoiding something or getting something. Any credential area. That is what it could be or should be. You could even say you should be aware of any demand or any requirement to get there or not get there, any positionality in there. More?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Beyond bowing, I'm wondering, how is it that pleasure can be completely desirable, whether it's, pleasurable, whether it's fulfilled or not in this physical reality?
Yeah, it's a misunderstanding about pleasure and fulfillment. Fulfillment may be suffering. This is where it's in the Sadhana Mahamudra. It says, if you will quote that for me, please. Pain and pleasure.
Like become ornaments, which it is pleasant to wear.
To become ornaments, and that's a way of using a very strong visual and conceptual idea so that you can actually see it is possible. It is possible to not know the difference between pain and pleasure, not reject one and run towards the other one. It's possible to know what that is without losing track of what it is in terms of your experience. This feels good, this feels bad. All of that can be done. All that can be done, but it is not something the ego or the conceptual mind or the calculating mind or the manipulating, figuring out mind can do, because it continues to run in a circle that looks like a straight line. More?
Beyond bowing,
Did you hear what I said? Could you paraphrase what I just said?
no.
Interesting, isn't it? And how much thinking would you say, a scale of 1 to 10, how much of the time that you were listening to what I was saying is spent thinking about what you were going to say next?
Yeah, like 60%.
60? That would have been my number. And the other thing is interesting, you can't stop doing that, and you don't have to. You don't have to change a damn thing. It's just an amazing understanding that people miss because they keep trying to manipulate or change or be somebody else, or get rid of negative feelings or have more positive feelings. Please.
Beyond bowing, how is the fulfillment confusion? How does the fulfillment confuse us about the desire and the demand? And what is pain?
How does the fulfillment do it?
How does the fulfillment confuse us between pleasure and pain?
Because we're still on a linear track of getting something or preventing something. We're buying into a passion, aggression, ignorance as being the way. The only way you can really do this is to stop this, or the only way you can do this is to get this. It's just more and more different kinds of materialism, getting something, spiritual materialism, psychological materialism, materialism, getting a community mindfulness center. That's materialistic. The ultimate understanding would be beyond that. That's why it doesn't matter what happens. We do it anyway. More?
Ian Bowing, and when I become completely lost about what you're saying right
Yes.
now, what should I do?
That's you've understood on the level you need to understand. You've understood what I've said. I heard a teacher say 50 years ago, listen to what I'm saying, but you don't have to understand it. And I thought, well, that's gotta be, why would you listen to something you can't understand? So I know what he was, I think it was he was referring to then, but I can't put that in words any better than it was put there. Study, but you don't have to understand. And this allows you to eventually understand in an ultimate way that is not conventional understanding. And it's in the area that many teachers scholars have even talked about of consciousness only, yan, wisdom, prajna. Just wisdom mind doesn't have an other to it because it transcends duality. So therefore it can't even show up as anything at all. More? Good areas that you're asking about, and you could return to those. I would highly recommend that you take your memory or listen to this recording. I think there is one, and listen to what you asked about. Because what you asked about was very, very good questions about pain and pleasure and desire or demand. That's a very good area to ask about. I recommend that you contemplate that. Yes.
Dr. Bowing, this was closer to the beginning of the talk, so I'm not positive, but I think you said you were talking about somebody who may have a sex change, and you said they may succeed in some sort of, I'm not sure what it was, but that there was a missed opportunity there.
There could be, and I don't know that. I'm not going to judge if someone is, I think I have one student, at least one student who's changed positions there. It seems to be working out great for that person. I mean, I'm not with them 24/7, but I'm saying it could be that time. It's so different. You can't set up a standard for this. 15 people, all, male, female, whatever, try to change to the opposite sex and do it in different ways. And some people, absolutely, that's what their karma, that's the karma they're going to have to live. But just try to set up some kind of a control mechanism where only so many people get to do this, or to judge people who are doing that. Anytime you judge anybody else, you're just shutting down your own wisdom mind, and you're opting for, in the theistic tradition, you're opting for the devil. You're opting for negativity. You'd rather have the negativity rather than the complete ultimate nature of what this is, which is the only relative thing that would even show up there would be light. The ultimate. So what is your question?
Dr. Bowing, it's shifting as I'm listening to you, but my original question was if I find some comfort or relative support, is that a missed opportunity on the path?
No. Further? Why it's so confusing. That's why if we try to do it with a relative situation, it's not that would add to the confusion necessarily, because the whole world is doing that. You may be doing exactly what you needed to do in that area, especially the human form, male, female. There is no such thing as male or female. So if you don't mind me saying, it just looks that way. And it looks intensely like, and it looks that way so much that some aspects of consciousness are showing up as the biological manifestation of feminine or masculine. There's no such thing as that division.
Mizuki bowing. If I cover up my negativity, that can show up as relative comfort or relief. Is that a missed opportunity on the path?
Well, it could be. I wouldn't come down and say, "Oh, you're covering up. You're missing your opportunities." I sometimes say, "Don't miss your life," but I don't really come in and tell you if if it looks to me like you're missing your life. And I know people that looks like they are. It looks like they're opting for some kind of confusion. That gives them the illusion that they're a further understanding that they may be in control of their life, which is quite humorous. But that doesn't mean that I know that. That's why I give, insofar as I'm able, I give everything and everybody the benefit of the doubt. But this doesn't stop me. I'm not a person who has an identity who gives everybody the benefit of the doubt. No, I just flew into a fit yesterday to try to give you some kind of idea. I'm not trying to be a fool. I'm not trying to scare you away. I don't know. I could have used some teaching like this when I was 18, but I didn't meet anybody that could help me in this way. Even Trungpa Rinpoche could not help me as directly, give me as direct a kind of help as I really needed. I'm giving you what I feel like you may need. If you need it, then receive it. If you don't worry about it. But what looked like, and if I ask, so how did that look to you? People say, well, it looked like you're acting. Someone else say, well, it looked like doesn't look like you were acting. It looks like that was, well, for me, that's the actual emotion. You name an emotion, I can find it. I have access to the emotion. Unless it's vanity, of course, I couldn't have access to that. I am vanity. I could not sit up here and do this if there was an extreme self-centeredness. Sometimes it's called Vajra pride in the tantric tradition because you have to explain it somehow. Adamantine, indestructible belief, confidence. But you might have to go through a whole labyrinth of pain and suffering and difficulty, which you won't have any memory of. It's an illusion.
Mizuki bowing, you frequently encourage us to be the crap we're trying to get rid of.
I do.
Can that look like fixation?
Yes. Is it fixation?
Is it fixation?
I ask you. Looks like fixation. Is it fixation?
It could be. My question's sort of in the opposite.
Don't get cute with me.
I'm not sure. I would ask you.
Well, it could be. See, and this is just a little bit silly, but reflect on, you cannot find a position. You don't need a position. You can live in a complete open dimension of being where you have no idea what's going to happen next. Have no idea what happened back there because there isn't a next or a back there. And you can live here. I'm in it. I'm not in it. I am this. It's not some kind of a whoop-de-doo. Look how great I am. But if it looks like that to you, maybe you're not ready for this teaching. Go somewhere else. But if you are, I'm ready to give it to you. And I won't require anything of you. If it's a transaction, it's not the spiritual path. Why are you crying? No idea? Well, how do you think I feel? I have no idea what I'm even doing or saying. Enjoy yourself, relax right into the feelings you're having, relax right into those. Just let yourself drown in that emotion. Nothing will happen because nothing is threatened. The worst negative feeling or emotion that comes up in your mind can't find you. You can't be threatened because you are consciousness. You are not a separate person. These bodies sitting here are illusions. Illusion not real. There, present, showing up, reflecting light, waving its arms, but unreal. Find it. You can find that. Other question? Yes.
Question on YouTube from Naveed. Naveed Bowing, is the space in which thoughts arise is it the same as the space in which the world in front of us, like sight, sound, smell, touch, and everything else arise in?
Yes. Same space. There are no separate spaces. And to get completely radical about it, there's no such thing as space. There is no space. There is no interval. Interval is a practice, the ground path and fruition. Suffering, interval, or train your mind, and fruition, or nothing. Nothing happens. Even nothing is extra because it's a judgment on something, or it's a position, but have to say something, or we don't say anything. Where are you going?
I need Kleenex.
Bring me some, will you?
You don't have any handkerchief.
All I have is a dirty handkerchief. Yes.
Yoka Bowing, I have a question from Andrew.
Before you do Andrew, I'm going to do Shoto, who had his hand back 4 questions ago.
Shoto, Shoto bowing. When you were talking about how we might,
Nice picture.
Me?
Yeah, I'm listening to him. It's all right. About how we might, I just telling you, the picture you sent, it was a good picture. I want a bigger. Okay. Don't stop.
Shoto bowing, how we might get relative peace or happiness up in for the rest of this life. If we're able to do that, is there some danger when we die if we've been able to?
Nothing dies. You don't die. The body dies. If you realize what this is, you may be shocked. You may not be shocked. The body will drop away and nothing will happen. The body, you don't even see the body dropping away because there has to be a witness for that. And there is no witness. Go ahead.
Shoto bowing, if we don't realize what this is and we're able to maintain relative happiness the rest of our life, what happens when we die?
You continue to be happy for a while. Because it's for a while, because you've maintained something for a while, and the for a while persists. So you die and you continue to be in a house that somebody else purchased 20, 30 years ago that you still think is your house. You're still, it's called a ghost. You're still there fixing what, Mexican sweet rolls? Where is she? More? Where's my Kleenex? I don't want the one you use. Freshman, thank you. A little bit crude. Yes, sir.
Yoka Bowing, Andrew on YouTube. Andrew Bowing, if you get a deeper sense of the spaciousness you speak of, can that feel like intense loneliness? Bowing.
The path quality, we break it down into ground path and fruition. And yes, it can feel like loneliness. And it will feel like loneliness, and eventually it will feel like, and just talking here relative to what it looks like you're looking for. So even what I'm saying here is a pack of lies. So all I do is lie. It will look lonely, and then it will look like you're just alone. And then that will go away too. Then there's no polarity anymore. There's just consciousness. No, the personhood has completely come apart. But there's no conclusion to it because there's nothing left to conclude. That's why this time, space situation has just been seen through not by a person, but just by consciousness. Consciousness has finally found its own form, which is what? Consciousness only. Wisdom just sees wisdom. But up until that time, it just continues to find whatever form it needs to lead to its complete understanding. It's like a reversal instead of, so it's like something being born, it's like something going backwards. Yes,
That coming and going alone, is that the illusion of time and space?
yes. Time and space and somebody that it's happening to.
Mr. Bowning?
Yes,
I think what I want to know in the area of fixation is. It seems like. Is there anything other than fixation and ignorance?
is there anything?
What's the middle way between or with fixation and ignorance?
But middle way is the path. You see this and you see that, and you don't go this way, you don't go that way, and you notice how you're pulled both. And that's how you can determine that there's a middle way. My way of teaching middle way is don't do anything unless you have to. Because there's a lot of either or is going to show up, as you go down the road. As my Uncle Ralph used to say, that's a road of life. He said it sounded like that too. That's not awful, is it? It wasn't to me when I first heard him say that 70 years ago. That was his philosophy. That's a road of life. He was someone who hitchhiked all over the country and lived in boxcars and everything back in the 30s. Interesting, huh? Now, what was your question?
I think you responded to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a question, Gabe? Have some time if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
Jennifer Bowing.
Go ahead, Jen.
Is there a difference, or what is the difference between love and compassion, Bowing?
The way you're asking the question, same thing. The only thing that's that would be different there is there's no grasping, there's no demand. And compassion, relative love, you already know what that is. That's a grasping kind of ownership love. And the other kind of love is more just appreciating and being respectful of people and what they're doing, being respectful of their confusion. Very much like treating everyone like they're a child who is confused, even if they're 50 years old, that they're operating out of hope and fear and desire and discomfort. So being respectful of that would be love, relatively. And then compassion would be putting others before yourself. Difficult when you're having difficulty to set how you feel aside and focus on the welfare of others as you perceive it.
Jennifer Bowing, what is the difference between acceptance and compassion, Bowing?
Acceptance is bullshit, since you asked. Don't accept anything. It's a teaching that's given, and I have to use that kind of a response because it really is. You don't have to accept anything. You can watch the way you naturally would receive or accept something. Receiving something is different than accepting it. Receiving it as your hands are open and something fills up your hands or fills up your eyes or fills up your mind or fills up anything, fills you up, just comes towards you and you receive it through the receptors. Accepting something as a category, a way of structuring that is as a concept in the mind stream that gives you a credential for receiving. You've stopped receiving and started to keep track of. I'm just receiving. Not I'm just receiving. I just learned to accept this. You might as well be shutting right down on the very lesson, the very part of your life that you're missing because you would rather just be accepting it rather than realize that that's more painful than that. You need to receive the difficulty, the pain, the obstruction of that, not just accept it prematurely, as they say.
Jennifer Bowing, what's the difference between feeling and receiving, Bowing?
Feeling is spelled with an F. R is spelled with, no, wait, that's the letter. Feeling,
Jennifer Bowing,
ask me that again.
is there a difference between feeling and receiving? Bowing,
So I asked Chazon, he just shrugged. So. Let me address it more seriously, I guess, and to say that receiving, when I say teach, just receive, it's more of a teaching thing. This is something that you can actually do rather than accept. If you're receiving, then you have to be aware of what is coming your way. If you accept something, you cover it up so it's acceptable. You laminate it. You might put the credential of I'm just going to receive. That what that does is reinforce the receiving part, which is ego. There is no part that receives. So to come back to it, I would just say that just feel, if you could be just feeling something that may be receiving, not always. But you couldn't use that as a lockdown or a standard that you're always going to. If you're actually receiving, if you're actually compassionate, if you're actually putting others before yourself, you won't know it. If you're getting a credential for that, then at some point you've stopped doing that and started to add up, keep track, become a statistician in your mind stream. Adriana,
Adriana bowing. Sokuzan, how can we refrain from lying when we see that we have been lied to a lot ourselves? Bowing.
so just it's just as a general response, I would say just be aware of what's happening rather than try to prevent or stop or make excuses, or just be aware of it simply, unless I'm missing what you're asking me about.
I think I can ask a little bit more.
Okay.
If I'm not sure what the truth is, how can I refrain from lying?
Shut your mouth.
Okay. Thank you. Bowing.
You don't have to
Deb
talk.
Bowing.
You just listen. Yep.
Deb Bowing.
Yes.
Can I still be on the path if I only feel or seem to have compassion in certain places of my life and not so much in other places of my life? Deb
Yes.
Bowing.
Yes, you can. That is the path, is the awareness that you can't do it, the awareness that it's just too much to ask over here, the awareness, always about the awareness, and each person's path is so much different. That's why some people, because they get confused about that or not sure and need more guidelines, more help, more support, more reference points, become monks. Other people do not. There's no requirement. You can do this, right where you're at. You never have to come to the monastery. You can just stay right there and continue to practice, or you can come here if you wish, of course. But you just continue to return to stillness, return to silence, even though it doesn't seem very, very quiet, and return to stillness, even though it doesn't seem very stable or still. But you return to it, return to that idea, so that eventually, over time, over space, those are two illusions, you eventually slow down and begin to see and give your attention to everything that's arising in the sense fields and in your room and in your life and in your relationships. You begin to just really receive everything. And this is a compassion. There won't be a credential. You won't feel compassionate. Compassion is not a feeling. It's just, it has its own dynamic, which may have a feeling aspect to it on occasion. If you actually feel the pain of the composite, you won't be able to stand up, because consciousness is not separate. There's no separate situation. So you are protected, or at least isolated from that by the nature of consciousness when it's in a human form. But when you actually see what this is, if you get flashes of it, you could say it will knock you right off your feet. If you have any feet left. Yes, sir.
You long bowing. I'm curious about the words awake and conscious, because in the spiritual practice context, they seem to be
Yeah.
vague and abstract, but we use them all the time in terms of someone losing consciousness or regaining consciousness or falling asleep, waking up. So I'm wondering, just relatively speaking, what is the essence of being awake or being conscious, and why does that concept serve as like a organizing
It's a good
metaphor
one.
for us?
It's a very good question. Let's see if I can get somewhere in that area. Just the nature of ego or feeling self-centered here or here or here as a person using a body as a reference point. I'm here and Yunlong's over there. So keeping the idea of identity is still there. It's just that when it's isolated and separated in the illusion of space, in the illusion of time, last week, next week, and all of that, we tend to clamp down on that so we have some control in the illusion. But when you realize that you are consciousness only, which is the highest form of identity, if I were to say it that way, I'm not going to write a book called that. But if you use the relative expression, which we have language and we have vocal cords, we have to do that, or we have keyboards or voice to text. I'll leave that out. But the centrality of it is thought of and talked about in so many different ways, and that's what I know that's what you're asking about. And I would just say it just gets more and more radical, more simple as we move along, and less shows up there in terms of an otherness or a reference point. What more?
Long bowing. What I want to know is,
Thank you.
Does consciousness or wakefulness imply or involve the ability to receive? Like, could that be what we're talking about? When someone is awake, they can receive sensory input.
I can take it a little further. It's someone who has practiced and has realized what I understand. This is my understanding of it. Not something that the Buddha might look at me and say, that guy's full of it, don't listen to him. That's not what I was saying. But what I'm looking at is it doesn't have any progression to it. So that I'm not receiving anything. If I were to say it as close as I can, I am this man here. I am this man. I am this woman. I am this man. I am you. So when I say I am you, not just your body, but the whole, anything you bring this way in terms of language or concepts or ideas, or I am that. And because I'm still in a situation, when I say I was downloaded into this, as we all were years ago, many years ago here, and that looked real, and then I say that's unreal. So that has returned to its original state while still being embodied. Not a credential. It doesn't even feel feels kind of like you feel like a dodo because you don't know anything. And you notice that everybody else is operating out of information and language and ideas and right and wrong, and you're not. So there's not much of a contrast. So what you want to know
is receiving the fundamental operation.
Receiving is the path. At some point, thank you. So receiving, no credential being built up, just receiving until there's nothing left to receive because you don't see anything that's other than you. Everything, everywhere you look, you see yourself. It's heartbreaking because you see so much suffering everywhere. And you can't fix it. And you know that that's not even the point. It's just that since you're not separate from her or him, you also feel that suffering. When you feel the difficulty, that's why you can teach. And what does the teaching say? Look at your mind. Look at your mind. It's that simple. And yet I can sit up here and respond to any question you have. It may not be satisfactory when you hear the response. I may joke about it. Some of my joking is just about pointing at the complete absurdity of even having a Dharma talk. On the other hand, we aren't going to be able to do this unless we're pretty serious about it because it's too easy to just go into any direction, go into, starting a dude ranch. Who better than to start a dude ranch than somebody who thinks this is ridiculous? What are dude ranches? Dude ranch? You heard of that? Am I just making that up? No, there are dude ranches. Question.
I don't feel like it anymore.
Uh-oh, that's frightening. What did you see? Don't just share it. No, don't have to ask the question, but what happened there?
I was getting wrapped up in why I was asking the question as opposed
Yeah.
to the material of the
Yeah,
question.
was it the fact that you're an attorney?
I don't know.
I like that response. I don't know. It's okay. I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
Don't have to, if it comes back up though, while I'm here. No. Yes, don't you?
Future bowing. When you say don't do anything unless you have to,
I do.
does that mean that something will look obvious if we have to do it?
May not look obvious. It wouldn't be so much about you're not, this is happening, you have a temptation to do this, but not that. In my idea, it's a way of teaching patience. Say just don't do anything. In other words, that includes the mind stream. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about something or sorting things out. Don't do it. Just as it says in Atisha's one of his slogans, change your attitude. Just deliberately use the power of your mind to distract yourself. As long as you're doing it with awareness, you can just be something else. Like I was endeavoring to demonstrate yesterday by blowing my stack deliberately. And someone can say, well, you're just acting. Well, it doesn't make any difference if I'm acting or not. Makes no difference. But coming back to what you seem to be asking about, what were you asking about? What do you want to know? I'm going to use Yen Long's what he wants to know. What do you want to know?
If something looks obvious, is that suspicious?
Not necessarily. I would say there again, it's the situation, but to say that looks obvious, that's part of the awareness. This looks like, well, it's just a matter of gravity. All I have to do is lean that way, and that will happen. That doesn't necessarily mean you should lean that way. So less is better, it seems, in this area. So do less. But when it comes to sitting practice of meditation, that is a stylized, conceptual, structural form of doing less. Come in, deliberately sit down, do less. Stillness, silence. Well, at least that's the intention. And what happens there is about the awareness of the movement. I have to be aware. You don't have to sit still, but if you are moving, you need to be aware of that. Much easier to do that if you're, if you're sitting still or trying to sit still than if you're moving around the kitchen. You can be aware of that too, but some people teach that. I think that's, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of space. Isn't that clever of me to say that? No? Yeah, okay. Further? Less is better. Just if you don't have to do it, don't do it. And then you can, when you don't hook up your vocal cords and speak, or if you don't hook up your mental chatter and let that go. If you've been meditating for years and years, you know how to just, without necessarily deliberately ignoring something, to just back away from that steam engine in the mind that is rattling and rattling and rattling constantly. And saying this, saying that, saying this, saying that, doing this, doing that, pushing this, pushing that. You know how to just back away from that slightly by using the body. Hold the body still. It does not have to be a result, because again, so that's awareness. Any other questions or any questions on Zoom? I'm kind of ignoring you all. No? Okay, any questions in here before we close? No? Yes, no? Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll close, and thank you so much for coming to this and for asking questions. Thank you.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shi fu shi son mu sa mo ko sa mo ko the 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, its buildings, gardens, and all adjoining areas from any and all dark or negative energy. Remove and dissolve any negative energy or devices. Fill everything and everyone with light. Please shield and protect with light our teachers, monks, students, and all practitioners of the Dharma, our families and friends from negative forces and energy from now on. Help us to realize the truth of the Buddha's teachings.
Mhm.